Let's welcome in a three-time Super Bowl champion who's here today on behalf of Renegade Fantasy. Download Renegade Fantasy from the App Store and Google Play today. Cash prizes are available in Mark's Stinkin' Truth Fantasy Showdown League. And that, of course, is our pal, Mark Schlereth. Mark, always great to have you on. How you been?
I've been great, Zach. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, let me start you off with the Broncos, a team that you played for many years, and I know that you do a talk show still in the Denver area. A sexy take this summer has kind of been, okay, the Broncos are going to go win the AFC West. I still think it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs, but how far are you willing to go with the Broncos this season?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's going to be much tighter division, right? I think Kansas City is obviously what they've done. They're outstanding. I think the Chargers are a really good football team. I think there's a lot of excitement talking to, the head coach and Sean Payton, talking to the owner of the franchise, Greg Penner. I mean, they're like the difference between last year and this year is last year we hoped we were going to be good. This year we know we are good. Defensively, not only were they great last year, but they added to that defense. First-round pick at the cornerback with Barron. They went out and got Hufanga at the safety position, who's an outstanding player. Drake Greenlaw is one of the best players in football, if healthy. Obviously, the last couple of years, he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl against Kansas City when he played for San Francisco. Last year, only played a handful of games, but that guy's looked really good in camp. And bottom line is they've tried to really fix their run game. And I think R.J. Harvey's going to be a big-time player for them. Went out and got a tight end in free agency. I'm telling you, there's a lot of excitement. And we'll see exactly how the growing pains of a second-year quarterback, come out. But bottom line is I think there's a lot of excitement. And I'm telling you right now, I've been at camp every day. This roster is deep. Their backups can really play. So there's great competition within the organization as well.
You just brought it up. You also played for both organizations. Like last year, what Jaden Daniels did was remarkable. Bo Nix exceeded all expectations that I had, but there is that year two jump. Like you look at C.J. Stroud, phenomenal year one. Sure, his offensive line wasn't great in year two. There was a bunch of injuries. He still won a playoff game, but people weren't as high on C.J. Stroud in year two that they were in year one. Is there a great fear for either quarterback in Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels that there will be some regression this year?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, obviously you try to pile more, you try to build off the foundation that you built the year before. There's continuity from a play calling standpoint, from an offensive coaching standpoint for both of those guys. Then they've upgraded. In Washington, they upgraded the left tackle position. So in Washington, they've upgraded. In Denver, they've upgraded. They feel really good about their two backs, Dobbins. They feel really good about R.J. Harvey. So, like, they've upgraded. They went out and got Evan Ingram at the tight end position. They have not had a tight end that really has produced from just a pure catches and yardage standpoint in quite some time. So, I think they feel really good about what they've got. And, the interesting thing, just sitting there talking to Sean Payton about culture, talking about what he's trying to build, one of the biggest things is they got rid of some popular players, some veteran players that they thought were on the downside, and they thought that just didn't fit into what they were trying to build, and and let those guys go. And so they're really happy with the young guys. A lot of people in Denver thought, well, their wide receiving core really young, they're really inexperienced, other than Cortland Sutton. And the Broncos coaches just were like, we've got the right guys in here. We've got the right, makeup of guys. So it's really cool to watch it. And they've looked really good in camp. I'm telling you, really good in camp.
Mark Schlereth here with us on behalf of Renegade Fantasy. We'll talk more about it in just a bit. The Colts yesterday, they announced that Daniel Jones is going to be their starting quarterback. Anthony Richardson put in the number 2 spot. How did you kind of process that decision by Shane Steichen and company?
Well, I mean, you're trying to compete in that division. And, I always say this. I talked about it on my podcast on YouTube, the Stinkin' Truth podcast. Listen, Anthony Richardson so far hasn't been worth a squirt of piss. And ultimately, like you look at that's what happens when you draft athletes, right? When you draft off of athleticism and your ability to jump over boxes and run fast, because that's not how football is played. And I say it all the time. Football is easy for football players. It's really hard for athletes. And to take a guy that's exceptionally athletic, draft him 4th overall, and think that all of a sudden you're going to make him a quarterback who played, 13 games in college? It's just foolhardy. It's just absolutely stupid. It's one of those things where you're selling hope to your fan base. You're selling athleticism to your fan base. That's not what wins in the National Football League. It just flat doesn't. So it doesn't surprise me. I've done a ton of Daniel Jones games. Remember the breakout year that Daniel Jones had? He had 15 touchdowns versus 5 interceptions. Now, he ran the ball exceptionally well, and they did a ton of quarterback design runs, and he really excels in that form, in that aspect of the game. But this is kind of the lesser of two evils. The one guy that really gives you a chance to win right now, or gives you the best chance to win right now, is Daniel Jones. So I understand why they made the decision.
Mark Schlereth here with us. I remember when you did that show, Breakfast Ball, with Danny Parkins and Craig Carden, there would be all this talk about the Bears quarterback situation, the Jets quarterback situation, right? You actually ended up being the winner with what happened with Bo Nix last year, but now everyone's back in on the Bears after one preseason. I think it's a little bit too much to be saying already they're going to be a team that figured out their quarterback and their head coach. I understand the excitement with Ben Johnson, but when you look at the Bears with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, what do you expect out of them this year?
Well, I expect them to be better. I don't know that they're going to win that division. That division is really interesting to me, right? With Green Bay and Minnesota and Detroit, all of them have had some issues, right? The thumb injury to Jordan Love, the loss of coordinators in Detroit, new quarterback in Minnesota. It's really hard to handicap that division, but certainly fourth place seems to be the Chicago Bears. But I think they'll be better. I talked to Ben Johnson about a month and a half ago, just about the offensive line, what they've done, the way they've addressed it. I think the guy's a phenomenal play caller. I think he does a great job of setting you up in long yardage situations with great run where you get really good looks. You get favorable boxes where you can get big time chunk yardage, put yourself in third down and short, put yourself in fourth down and short. He does a great job, not only designing of the trick plays, but actually running them. Like we all designed them. When I played, we designed them. Every week we had trick plays in. We never ran the damn things, but we always had them in. And so he always runs them, which keeps you engaged, man. It keeps you excited about what they're doing. Really interesting, though, Zach. So I'm talking to Sean Payton about just quarterbacks in general. And I've had this theory for a long time that quarterback sacks are quarterback-driven statistic more than they are an offensive line-driven statistic. And Caleb took 68 sacks last year. And Sean said before he drafted Bo Nix, and this is one of the things that sold him on Bo Nix, he did this extensive breakdown with their analytics department and said, hey, find me a quarterback in college football that took a lot of sacks in college football and didn't take sacks in the NFL. And they did a 2-day study and couldn't come up with one quarterback that took a ton of sacks in college that didn't take a ton of sacks in the NFL. And really interesting because they also did a study, same type of study, backs that fumbled a lot in college that fixed that issue in professional football. And there were tons of backs that no longer fumbled when they got into professional football because it got coached out of them. And so sacks become one of these really interesting things. You can't overcome them. And Caleb took 68 last year. And one of the big issues I had with him coming out of college when I studied the film, because I was really kind of digging into, because I live in Denver, I was digging in to all the quarterbacks. And he played off schedule so much. And he played off schedule when he didn't need to play off schedule. And that's a concern because that's when you take sacks. In the NFL, man, you've got to be on schedule. And it's really funny. I'm talking to Byron Leftwich. I'm doing a Tampa Bay game when Tom Brady was a quarterback. And I said, what's impressed you about Tom Brady? What's been the most kind of remarkable thing? And he goes, if we're running like drag slant and that drag is the first read in the progression and it's opened, Tom Brady will take it 100 out of 100 times without equivocation. It'll be a 4 or 5, 6 yard gain and we'll start at second down and 5 or second down and 4. And he goes, most quarterbacks want to get to the next thing, want to make a big play, see if a slant can take it 80, right? And he goes, just not Tom Brady. All he's going to do is do exactly what he's coached to do. And if that first read is open, it's a 4-yard gain, he's taking it. And guys that play on schedule understand that. Guys that play on schedule in the NFL win football games. And one of the things I've always said, I created this, I call it the 70-30 rule. 70% of the time on offense, we're on schedule, right? We hand the ball off on first down. It's second down and 6, right? We got 4 yards. Now we're in perfect position to run anything we want to run in our playbook. And 30% of the time, things are going to break down. Your quarterback's got to make a play. But when you just walk away from, being on schedule to go do something, go freelance, especially with the defensive ends in this league that run 4-4, sorry, you're going down, you're getting sacked, you're getting beat up, you're fumbling. Like you may create one big play or two big plays, but you give up 4 bad plays. It's one of the things that I think Kyler Murray struggles with in Arizona. And you see a lot of quarterbacks, and they just can't quite figure it out. It's because they want to have the spectacular. And boring is what wins. Like, boring wins football games from the quarterback position and offensively. And unfortunately, guys that can't understand that want a playoff schedule more, usually end up taking a bunch of sacks and usually end up struggling.
With all that you just said, right, Byron Leftwich, you mentioned him with Brady. Leftwich is now on the Colorado coaching staff, and a quarterback that's taken a ton of sacks the last few years was Shedeur Sanders. Now Shedeur is sort of in this whole situation where somehow Joe Flacco is the healthiest out of all these quarterbacks, and he's going to be the starting quarterback. But when we get to Shedeur, when you also have Dylan Gabriel in that room, maybe Kenny Pickett still makes the roster. Do you think it's just inevitable that at some point this year, if Shedeur fights through and is fine with this oblique injury and health isn't a problem, that Shedeur at some point will see the field in Cleveland as a starting quarterback?
Yeah, I think that he probably will. I mean, at this point, I can't imagine Joe Flacco being the starter for 17 games. I can't imagine that happening.
Especially the first 6 games are brutal for the Browns.
So 40-year-old Joe Flacco, hold down the fort for a while. Somebody else is going to be playing, and Shedeur's played well. When he came out, it was really interesting because I actually helped out with spring ball up at CU with Dion. I live in Denver, and Dion's a buddy, and I've known him for forever. And so went up there and helped out with their offensive line and did some things, in that regard. And the one thing about Shedeur, some of the criticisms, lack of arm talent, lack of overall athleticism, took too many sacks, and the whole narrative on Shedeur. Man, that dude is accurate, and that dude, now he did pull the ball sometimes to try to create big plays. That was part of what they did as an offense and part of the freedom that they gave him. And so we'll see if he can correct those issues. But accuracy was like he was on point with accuracy. Arm strength is probably the most overrated thing I ever hear every year. Arm talent. This guy throws it 70 yards. Well, I mean, other than the 2 times a year you throw a Hail Mary, when do you ever throw it 70 yards in the air? You don't. It just doesn't work that way. So that becomes a real issue. By the way, to throw the ball accurately, you've got to be on time. And to be on time, you've got to understand the offense. You've got to be able to process the offense. You throw the ball with your feet. So if your feet aren't on time, your arm is always going to lag behind. And so the great quarterbacks have an ability to be on time and therefore throw the ball accurately. When you're late and you don't understand what you're seeing, you will never be accurate with the football. It just doesn't happen that way. So one thing about him, man, he was extremely accurate over the course of his career. I have, listen, whatever happened in the pre-draft process and not being prepared or whatever the narrative is, I think he can play. I really do.
Wrap it up with Mark Schlereth. Tell me what you're doing today with Renegade Fantasy and this whole fantasy league that you got going on.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. This is really cool. We've got, we've got patents on the technology. We're the only league that you can actually sub players mid-game.
Wow.
So, yeah, so you can take your player, your quarterback's not performing. It's no longer you don't have the right anymore to dog cuss your players. Your player's not performing. He's not getting catches. He's not making a play, or he gets hurt. Dump him. Start your backup. Start the other guy. So that's what's going on right now at Renegade Fantasy. You can check it out, markschlereth.renegadefantasy.com. Sign up for my league. And by the way, if you win the entirety of the league, meaning you have the most points at the end of the year with all the different teams that are playing, and there'll be tons of different teams playing in this thing. You're going to win $5,000, a bunch of other prizes as well. So Renegade Fantasy, the only fantasy that allows you to switch players mid-game. Your guy's not performing. It's no longer his fault. It's your fault. You're the coach. Switch him out.
Cool stuff. Once again, download Renegade Fantasy from the App Store and Google Play today. Cash prizes are available in Mark's Stinkin' Truth Fantasy Showdown League. One last thing, and I'll end you on this, Mark Schlereth, the three-time Super Bowl champion. I understand, right, C.J. Stroud was a second overall pick, Jaden Daniels second overall pick. They took those teams outhouse to penthouse immediately. You saw Bo Nix play right away in Denver last year. Drake May didn't have to wait long before he got on the field in New England. I look at the Giants. I live here in New York. Russell Wilson, to me, at this stage of his career, is average, above average at best. Are the Giants making a mistake in not playing Jackson Dart week 1?
Yes, 100%. I mean, why wait? You know what Russell Wilson is. You know what he does well. He throws the deep ball as well as anybody, and then he throws it outside the numbers. He doesn't throw it in the middle of the football field, never really has, takes way too many sacks, has always taken a ton of sacks. Like, ultimately, to me, the future's now go with the growing pains. Understand there's going to be growing pains along the way. But if he develops like what happened in Denver last year, you've solved your quarterback issue. Like, this is one of the biggest no-brainers in the world to me. So that's the guy I would start. But that's me.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I have no interest in seeing Russell Wilson at this stage of his career.
I don't either. I'm with you, Zach. 100%. Lockstep, buddy.
You got it. Mark, appreciate it. Be well, my friend.
You too. Take care.